Energy Boutique with a brand new episode of ASTRO CLASS. So I thought that we should take a little bit of time to talk about some of the amazing aspects taking place that literally many of us will never see again, have never seen in our lives, because they are involving some planets that have a absolute huge orbit. So you may know that I'm talking about Pluto. We have a lot going on right now. Of course, Pluto entered into this Aquarius energy, giving us the second little taste of what this particular next 20-year phase is going to be. Again, we will see Pluto retrograde back into Capricorn energy here in the second part of 2024. If you haven't listened to 2024 year ahead overview, I'm going to recommend you do that so that you understand how things are going to shift for us mid-year, and especially once Pluto creeps back into that 29th critical crisis degree of Capricorn energy, we're definitely going to be moving through a lot of the things that we thought we were done with, that we closed the door upon. Now, Pluto is I'm going to say, a pretty powerful planet. He is the lord of the underworld. He is how transformation takes place through a series of damage and destruction in order to clean the slate, clear the space in order for a rebirth, a resurrection to actually take place. Now, in mythology, we know Pluto as Hades. And again, Hades being the ruler of hell, so to speak, and knowing that the earth plane is essentially the highest form of hell, the lowest form of heaven, we are talking about Pluto really bulldozing through a lot of areas of our lives right now. Especially on the greater, grander global stage, of course, we have been absolutely just deconstructing and destroying the old structures. Where capitalism is concerned, where power, control is concerned. This is why when you go back to 2008 and Pluto moved into Capricorn energy for the first time, that really shook up the stock market, shook up agriculture, it shook up healthcare, it shook up the housing, the whole housing crisis, especially in the USA, because Pluto, they're having their Pluto return. 248 years it takes for Pluto to go full circle, full orbit. And so this is why we're seeing, I know that the whole world is, damn near lost their mind crazy, but we're seeing a lot of this energy be focused on the states. And again, reason for that is because they're going through their Pluto return. So Pluto is definitely a main contributing factor. But, we're here in February. February is pretty dark times in the zodiac calendar. We are in the final chapters of this astrological year. As I'm coming to you here, February 14th, we are about to wrap up Aquarius season and dive into Pisces season, which always brings on the feels. It is the last sign of the zodiac. It is the ending, the closure that we need in our lives before we enter into a new astrological calendar. And that's why things get heavy, weighted, deep, dark at this particular point in the year. We have a lot of unpacking to do. We have some ego shedding to do. We have some healing to do. And of course, that Pisces energy, as much as it is shadow work, it is very healing. It is very transformative. It is immutable water energy, which means that we're going to be moving into the emotional and spiritual realms of our existence. Immutable energy, of course, means that we're constantly pushing the boundaries of change. We're constantly, trying to gain new information, new insight. We're constantly trying to improve. We're constantly trying to do better. And we have to tear ourselves down, right, in order to build ourselves up in a much better way. Now, seeing as we just anchored in this new version of self under the new moon in Capricorn, January 11th, prior to the full moon in Leo energy that activated the major change in our heart space, we are, again, slowly but surely trying to find a new strength, a new familiarity in this new version of self. And we just had the new moon in Aquarius energy, which again, as I'm coming to you here, February 14th, we are between the new moon and the first quarter moon in Taurus energy that will be popping off here on the 16th. The first quarter moon of any lunar cycle is an action point, a decision point, a choice point based off of some of the ideas, some of the aha moments, some of the insights that, again, we were downloaded with under that new moon in Aquarius that we haven't made sense of yet. We haven't really been able to articulate as of yet. And of course, the first quarter moon in Taurus is going to help us do just that. It is in a fixed earth sign, which means that we are going to be actually tangibly understanding what needs to change, the adjustments that are needed, what we have to transform in our life, in our physical realm, where our physical bodies, our routines, our happiness, our joy, our safety, security, stability in relationships and money matters, and our long-term vision, our long-term goals, where all of that is concerned. So again, we're still kind of waiting for the epiphanies, we're waiting for the illumination, we're waiting for the clarity. But while all of that is happening, we have some serious energies going on in the backdrop, so to speak. So the 13th, it was just yesterday, we had Mars, the god of war, ruling over our physical energy, our drive, our passion, our desires, move into Aquarius energy, which on its own, again, is its own, energy shift, different mood, different attitude, sudden bursts of random eccentric energy that push us into taking action and progressing ourselves on a path and a plan and a strategy based on new ideas, based off of new epiphanies. We're not there yet. We're still in this adjustment arena. But the big thing is that Mars, who just moved into this Aquarius energy, the very first thing that happened is that he met up with Pluto, the great transformer. So here we have Mars, the god of war, and we have Pluto, the lord of the underworld, Hades, the god of hell, so to speak. They're teaming up in Aquarius energy. And again, reminder, Aquarius energy is futuristic, it's visionary, it's progressive, it's innovative, rules over technology, rules over improvement, rules over, just understanding where it is that we could be doing better. It is consciousness. It's a higher level of awareness. And so, we're just fresh into this. Now, Mars and Pluto, they have not met up in Aquarius energy for like 240 plus years. Okay. Like this is taking us back to, I think, like 1779, if I'm not mistaken. My math is bad, so bear with me. I'm just plucking it out of the air. But it's a big deal because, of course, Mars has a 2-year cycle. So like 2 years ago, we bumped into Pluto, but that was at the tail end of Capricorn energy. And in 2 years' time, Mars will bump into Pluto again at a different degree in Aquarius energy. But because Pluto hasn't been in Aquarius energy for like 248 years, this is the first time that Mars and Pluto are meeting up in Aquarius energy for that particular time frame as well, give or take a couple of years. Mars retrogrades every 2 years, so that kind of, mixes with those digits just a tad. So what we get here, first of all, Mars is masculine energy. And it's a fighter energy. It's the warrior type of energy. It rules over our physical action, our passion, our desires, even our anger. Now, Pluto, again, we know him as the great transformer, but how do we transform? Well, there has to be a destruction of the old. There has to be a death and ending of a closure of the old in order for there to be a space for something new to be born, something to be renewed, something to be resurrected. So first of all, let's just talk about the fact that this is an intense energy. Like they directly aspect here today, the 14th. Yes, they've been within orb of each other, but right now on the 14th, they are at the exact degree, the exact minutes of each other in this Aquarius energy. And so what we get here is, first of all, a lot of energy coursing through our physical bodies, coursing through the earth plane at this particular point in time. There is this, I'm going to say, unconscious impulse to fight, to protect, to defend, to go onto that battlefield. And, Mars using his sword to cut through anything and anyone coming at him. That is the death. That is the ending. That is the destruction that is needed in order to clear the space out, clear the battlefield out for us to kind of progress, innovate into something new, into something better, where we don't have to find ourselves in these clashes anymore. Mars is intense on his own. Pluto intense on his own. And having them come together, there is this impulse, this overwhelming want, need, and desire to just cut through, destroy, put an ending, a closure, a death to all that isn't working, to all that just isn't supporting us, isn't making us happy, isn't, providing the kind of experience that we want to be experiencing. Because this is happening in Aquarius energy, intellectually speaking, we are recognizing now, kind of downloading and receiving some downloads on what is possible for humanity if we just stop the bullshit that constantly puts us in conflict with each other and constantly puts us in a situation of war, of crisis, of pain, of trauma. Now, again, we understand now that the systems, the structures that create these particular conflicts, they are collapsing, in some cases not collapsing fast enough for my particular happiness and joy, and for the collective's particular happiness and joy. But nonetheless, anytime planets come together and they conjunct, they team up, they meet up, there is an ending just as much as there is a beginning. And the ending is understanding where it is that we cannot continue this old barbaric power and control, this misuse of power and control, especially coming from the top and seeing how it trickles down and creates conflict and tension within ourselves and within the collective. So that definitely has to end. The beginning that comes out of this is still yet to be seen. And again, we're in a very sensitive point in time right now where we are kind of, I'm going to say, sitting back, waiting for clear indicators on where humanity is going from here. Right now, personally, I don't think it looks good. I don't think that we're aligning with the highest timelines available to us. I also don't believe that we're on the lowest timeline available to us either. But I personally was just hoping that humanity would be a little bit more evolved at this particular point in time and therefore aligned with a better timeline than we're currently on. But nonetheless, there's change, there's progression. So we have a lot going on between this particular Mars and Pluto aspect. So now we have to talk about the fact, I'm going to take you kind of 2 days in advance to the 16th. What happens on the 16th, you may ask? Well, first of all, we are having that first quarter moon in Taurus energy. So again, kind of completing the lunar cycle of having to take action and having new thoughts, new downloads, new epiphanies be realized within us. And we're definitely going to see a little bit more of a stabilized path, plan, strategy moving forward come the 16th. But Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, and money, who rules over that Taurus energy that the moon is currently getting the first quarter action decision point in, Venus is moving out of the Capricorn energy. She's moving into Aquarius energy, which again, on her own, she's the feminine energy. She's the heart space. She's happiness, joy, safety, security, stability. She's relationships. She's money matters. In Aquarius energy, if that was just the only thing going on, we were definitely going to have a major change of heart. Why? Because we're moving into the observer type of mentality in Aquarius energy, where Venus wants connection and intimacy. Aquarius energy wants independence and freedom. So we are going to feel the tug of war in our heart space over that. We're also going to be acting as the observer, taking a different perspective, a different approach to our heart space, to our affections, to our happiness, our joy, our safety, security, stability, to our relationships, to our money matters. What could we be doing differently? What can we change? What do we want to experiment with? That's a whole jam. And again, there's an astro forecast posted about Venus moving into Aquarius energy, so you can take a listen to that. But again, what we have taking place here on the 17th, the very next day, technically speaking, she's already within orb of meeting up with Mr. Pluto prior to even dipping into that Aquarius energy. But on the 17th, Venus and Pluto are going to be at the exact same degree down to the minute. And so this is the first time in 240 plus years, give or take, that Venus and Pluto will come together in this Aquarius energy. Mostly, again, because Pluto, this is the first time, 248 years, he's been in this Aquarius energy. Venus meets up with Pluto pretty much every year. And, you know, it's not a strange thing for Venus and Pluto to meet up. When they do meet up, I think, you know, we typically speaking, like taking you back to July and August of 2023, for example, when Venus was retrograding, we always kind of have interactions with Pluto, like Venus, as she moves throughout the signs, will be in, you know, oppositions or squares or sextiles or, you know, harmonious aspects with Pluto, in order for us to kind of intensify the focus on the depth that is needed in our ego selves, in our self-worth, in our self-esteem, and our self-confidence, in order for us to build ourselves up again. But having a conjunction is different. Again, they would have conjuncted, you know, at least one time last year. And when Venus was moving through the Capricorn energy this time last year, of course, Pluto would have been there. They would have had their conjunction at the tail end of that Capricorn energy, but this is the first time that they are conjuncting in this Aquarius energy. And so it's a pretty big deal. Now, Venus and Pluto coming together, this is kind of like, I'm going to say, again, an ending and a beginning at the same time. The ending part is closing out the old version of self that, again, we've been trying to kind of defragmentize ourselves from over the course of these last couple of weeks, if not months. We had this version of ourselves like first kind of, be ignited, if you will, back in July and August of 2023. We brought them this new version out of self out to play in Scorpio season, but we technically anchored the new version of self in January 11th under the new moon in Capricorn energy. At that time, that is when we anchored in the timelines, the karmic chapters that we're currently, adjusting to and trying to sort through and process and build upon and everything of the sort. So it's still a fresh thing. And like I said, January 11th was that new moon in Capricorn. We locked that version of self in and those timelines in. And then we had that full moon in Leo, which totally just shook us up. We had a major change of heart take place. And now that Venus and Pluto are coming together, this is the death. This is the ending. This is the closure needed to the old relationship dynamics, to the old ways of treating ourselves, the old self-worth issues, the old things that made us happy, the old things that provided us a sense of safety and security that we no longer are in alignment with. They don't feel good anymore. But we have to get rid of them. There has to be a total destruction of that particular construct before there is a space for us to build in something new. And again, an ending point takes place at the same point as a beginning point takes place. And the beginning that's coming out of this is a more evolved version of self, more in alignment with the heart space, more concerned with how we're treating ourselves, with how we feel about ourselves, with understanding that what we've built in our physical realms may have, filled a particular wound or void that our old self needed to fill, but we've healed that particular part of ourselves. That's now why we're not resonating with a lot of people in our lives, a lot of things that we're doing, especially with our finances, how we're making money. There is a revamping of the power that we are now standing in within loving ourselves. Again, the Venus energy, it starts with the way that we feel about ourselves. Do we love ourselves? Do we think we're worthy of happiness, joy, safety, and security? Do we think that we're deserving of those things? There's been a total renovation of how we feel about ourselves, again, anchoring the new version of self in, and therefore now some of the aspects that the old version of self had created, we're not in alignment with that anymore. They got to go. So Venus and Pluto, yes, and it's an intensity. Yes, it's going to likely illuminate a lot of the pain and trauma that we've accumulated on our heart space in order for us to realize that we can override it. We can do better. This is Aquarius energy. We can improve it. We can evolve it. We can see a higher form of potential. We can definitely see where it is, especially being emotionally detached, seeing it from like the bird's eye view, if you will. We can now see where the pain and trauma of our previous experiences have unconsciously created a program and a condition in us that is essentially holding us back, tainting the opportunities and possibilities that we have to create and build something healthy and beautiful and loving and supporting. We can see now where that self-sabotaging programming and conditioning is essentially holding us back from where it is that we desire to be. And the Plutonian energy gives us the ability to squash it, to override it. Considering the fact that Pluto does a deep dive in our psyche and that is the programming and conditioning that our wounds have built, that is what is creating the inability to move on, to move forward, to level up, especially in our relationship dynamics and in our money matters as well. So then on the 18th, we move into Pisces season. So Pisces season is never favorable, even for Pisces people, even though they have their birthday coming up. It's not an enjoyable time, even for them. Why? Because it's the last sign of the zodiac. We're at an ending of a chapter here. Not only, the ending of the chapter that Mars and Pluto just did, that Venus and Pluto just did, but we are ending a chapter. Even if you remove those particular special aspects, we're closing out a year. Pisces energy is the cleansing and purification process that we need to go through in our ego selves, in our spiritual selves, in our mental realm, in our emotional realm, in our physical realm. This is like the cleansing process that we need to go through to lighten the load so that when we enter into Aries season with that equinox energy, that is the beginning of the new astrological year, that we're as light as we could possibly be. And when I say light, I mean that we're not carrying heavy emotional or mental baggage in that is not serving us, that has the potential to self-sabotage new opportunities coming at us in this new karmic chapter. On top of that, we are looking to have more information, because light is information and knowledge. We're looking to have more insight, more information, more details to work with moving into the new astrological year. And so again, we're lightening our load, so to speak. But the cleansing period, the purification period is taking place on a spiritual, on a soul level. You know, the Pisces energy is our soul contracts. It is our karma. And because this new version of self still has attachments that the old version of self had created, this is the cleansing and purification process of removing those particular attachments. And that sometimes does not feel good. Even in your head space, even in your heart space, when you know that a particular chapter is coming to an end, there is a sadness, a grieving period. Even as excited as you may be to get that particular chapter behind you, there is a release of these attachment energies that's needed in order to actually bring a full closure to some of the chapters that, of course, we are moving away from. We are looking to clean the slate. We are looking to build something new in its place. The Pisces energy is going to help realign and recalibrate our soul spirit energy with the physical form. Our physical form constantly going through, let's call them DNA activation and upgrades because of the solar flares popping off from the sun. It is the stage of evolution. It is the ascension process of our spiritual evolvement. So our physical bodies are constantly changing. We've had a change of heart. The Aquarius season in its entirety has been a change in perspective, a change of mind. And now we have to do the inner soul work in order to recalibrate the mind, the body, the soul. Does that feel good? Absolutely not. Is it absolutely necessary? For sure it is. And especially when you have the mind frame that this too shall pass, when you have the mind frame that this is the last hurrah before we enter into a brand new astrological calendar, then that makes, it makes the heaviness, it makes the weight a little bit more tolerable. There is no joking here. This is why many people move through a depressive state in Pisces season. Also, side note to this is why you see a huge amount of people dying at this time, because they don't want to go on to another karmic chapter. They don't want to go on to another cycle. Their soul is essentially being cleansed and purified to enter into the spiritual dimension, so to speak. We always see huge amounts of death take place between Capricorn season and Aries season. Capricorn season, because Saturn, the Lord of Karma, rules over that. It's long-term visual, long-term plans, long-term structures. And once your soul is ticked off most of the to-do boxes, there's no point in sticking around conjuring up what we need to conjure up through Capricorn season, Aquarius season, and Pisces season to prepare ourselves to move into a brand new year. And so this is why we see many souls returning home at this particular point in the chapter, which of course adds an extra layer of sadness and grief onto those that still have to continue this earthly experience, mourning, grieving, moving through the sadness of what it is to physically lose someone from this earth plane. So again, there's just all kinds of extra added layers of complexities on why Pisces season is a very hard season for most of us to be moving through. This takes us to the 19th though. The 19th is very important and very specific. We have already been within orb of this energy. And again, let me just clearly define. I personally work within a 5-degree orb. What does that mean? It means that if a planet is within 5 degrees from another planet, then I believe that that is when the energies start blending together and you no longer have individual energies from individual planets. You now have a combustion of blending two energies together. Now, some astrologers will use a 10-degree orb, others will use an 8-degree orb. There are others that will use a 2 to 3-degree orb. However, I feel in my personal experience, the 5-degree orb is kind of, I'm going to call it the safest bet of influence, let's say. So we've already been within orb, and I'm talking about the true node and Chiron. So let's talk about the true node for a second. The true node, or the north node, is a mathematical point between the nodes of the moon. And this is what gives us our eclipses. This is why we're currently on the Aries and Libran axis, that we're currently, learning the karmic life lessons about. The nodes of the moon are mathematical points. The south node of the moon, currently in Libran energy, is what is kind of tried, tested, and true, what we feel comfortable with, what we feel familiar with, what is our safety comfort zone. And in Libran energy, we're talking about the karmic life lessons going on right now for us to realize we're codependent, people-pleasing type of relationships and qualities, where they've got to go. The North Node in Aries energy needs us to re-identify who it is that we are in our own unique individual selves without being influenced and impacted by other people's wants, needs, and desires that, typically speaking, when we come too intertwined with other people, especially in our relationship dynamics, we tend to lose a lot of who it is that we are, and we take on a lot of our partner, a lot of their wants, needs, and desires. And yes, as a partnership, you probably have your own set of goals, your own vision, your own dream. But a lot of the time when people get into relationships, especially if they have not taken the time to fully introduce themselves to themselves, meaning, do you know who it is that you are 100% before you get in a relationship with other people? And side note, spoiler alert, the answer is usually no, because we learn more about ourselves in the relationships with other people than we could ever learn just sitting by ourselves, so to speak. There is a tendency that we kind of mute our own individual vibration frequency when we are in close relationship dynamics. So the karmic relationship that we are kind of unpacking right now is where it is that we are too comfortable giving our power away to other people. And especially if we love them, especially if we want the best for them, we tend to put our own wants, needs, and desires on the back burner in order to honor the wants, needs, and desires of the individuals in which we loved. And although that sounds like a very kind thing to do, it means that we disconnect from our own power, our own energy, and we forget to kind of realize that we are our own unique individual with or without this person. And that's why when you go through a breakup, it's almost like you're going through a withdrawal from drugs or a substance, because now you're not having that energy source from another individual to keep you stimulated, to keep you balanced, to keep you interested in life. And the biggest, I'm going to say, whether you wanted the relationship to end or not, doesn't even matter what end of the spectrum you're on, whether you were the one to break it up or you were the one being broken up with. The energy that you got used to of being around particular people, when that is removed, this is why you feel lost. This is why you feel like your life is over, because you have to start from scratch. And that is essentially when you have a choice point. Are you going to throw yourself in another shallow relationship just to mask and distract yourself from doing the work within yourself and getting to know yourself to the utmost degree? Or most people, tend to go there because that's the easier choice. The smaller amount of people choose to kind of take a step back from being in relationships. They do the inner work within themselves. They do what needs to be done to heal the wounds from that particular relationship. And it takes some time, but over the course of time of them being by themselves and settling into their own energy and getting to know themselves again, they empower themselves. They're in a place of power. They're in a place of information and knowledge about themselves, about their own wants, needs, and desires, their own mission, their own purpose, than they ever could have known while still being attached to that particular relationship dynamic. So we're all learning, albeit the hard way, at this particular point with the nodes of the moon in this Aries and Libran axis. Let's talk about Chiron for a second. Chiron is the wounded healer. He is basically the centaur. He's half man, half horse. And, mythology would tell us that Saturn, Kronos, created this half man, half horse in order to basically sway this lovely little maiden in order to kind of reproduce and recreate with her. And of course, there's a whole story, a whole mythology that comes with that particular set of circumstances. But essentially, when it comes down to it, that's why we believe that we get 50% of our father's genes or 50% of our mother's genes, due to the, let's call it, composite makeup of the centaur and mixing its genetic formula, its DNA pattern, with a human maiden, so to speak. That is the animalistic analogy that we all have within us. Yes, we may be humans, but we have a reptilian or animalistic programming that rules over our physical body. You've heard me talk about this many, many times before. There's nothing wrong with this. It doesn't make us Satanists. It doesn't make us bad people. Our physical bodies are ruled over by Satan. That's the materialistic form. If you want to be a god here in this earth plane, you have to do a lot of things that are not favorable to your higher self, to your soul, to your spirit. And does that make it bad? Well, in this earth plane, from the perspectives of the collective, we think Satanism is bad. We think that, pouring into the physical body, vanity, the image of it all is bad. Again, may I tell you that if you are still looking at life as good and bad, then you are still not walking the spiritual path. The whole point is to understand that it is not good or bad. It is just a dualistic and polarized energy. We live in an earth plane of causation. For every action, there is a equal and opposite reaction. That is all that karma is. That is all the concept of light and dark, good and bad. We cannot, at this point of the evolution of our consciousness, be caught up with good or bad. If you take a good look around, you will know that many people here on earth are doubling down on the human experience. They are altering their physical bodies. They are selling their souls. They are giving into human pleasures. They are constantly just ingraining this egoic programming that, again, Satan or the devil, whichever way you want to call that entity, it's basically just the rulership of the physical form. It's materialism at its best. Is it good or bad? No, it isn't. It just is. That's how we have to balance the scales here in this earth plane. It just is. We have to understand that the ego programming that rules over our physical body is meant for us to survive at all costs. There's nothing wrong with that. It is very much needed for this earthly experience. But the centaur, or Chiron here, half man, again, Satan ruled, materialistic realm ruled, physical body ruled, ego ruled, and half centaur, the animalistic part, again, the reptilian brain, whatever, what have you. We know Chiron as the wounded healer. The wounds come from the earthly experience, from being man, from having an ego programming. The healer part comes from our soul, from our spirit, the wisdom, the knowledge that we've accumulated either in this experience or are able to access and channel through the highest form of our intellect, through our intuition. Chiron being the wounded healer, yes, we all have Chiron in our charts. We all are born into this lifetime with wounds that we are set out to heal. We all have the wisdom, knowledge, the resources within us to heal whatever wounds we are essentially coming into this incarnation to heal. We all have it. You can check your chart for that. In previous astro classes, we've talked about, where we find Chiron in the chart and what that actually means. Well, Chiron right now has been in Aries energy since 2017/18-ish due to the retrogrades-ish. We will continue to be in this Aries energy for quite some time. Fun fact, Chiron spends more time through his orbit, through his cycle, which by the way is 50 years. That's why when you reach the age between 50 and 55, you start having a midlife crisis because you don't know who you are. You have an identity crisis. You don't know who you are. That's why it happens. Chiron is giving us the opportunity to be the healer, to be the teacher, to be the guide, the mentor in our own lives, healing the wounds that we, again, came into this life to heal. Collectively speaking, we all have collective wounds. Take a good look around. This is generational trauma at its highest form. And right now, we have the North Node in Aries energy, our soul path, our destiny point in this Aries energy. And again, Aries energy ruled over by Mars, the warrior spirit, the masculine energy of the egoic programming. Because again, Mars is here for survival. He's ruling over our physical energy, our actions, our passions, our desires, even our anger. We have the North Node and Chiron coming together here on the 19th, conjuncting at 16 degrees, which is the halfway point in this Aries energy. Now, if you take a look, it's actually the 16th, the 17th degree that it's taking place in, but nonetheless, we are now on the second half of the decan, which is the 30 degrees that makes up every zodiac cycle here. So once you pass 15 degrees, we are essentially around that 15 degree marker. We are not newbies at this, but we're not masters at it either. And what we can understand from Chiron and the North Node coming together is that in our own lives, we're going to be front row center to our wounds in order for us to pick and choose what we are going to override, what we are going to heal. But mostly on the collective stage, we are going to see a major pivot point of crisis. Now, let me just also go back and say that we have been within orb of this particular energy, I'm going to say since, again, a beginning of the year. Now, no joke, we are seeing what's going on in the Middle East. That's a continuation of the North Node and the South Node in Aries and Libra energy when they popped off back in October under that eclipse energy. That's what manifested on this earth plane out of that particular energy. It was war energy. You know, are we going to continue to double down in our animalistic programming and continue the conflict and the war? Or are we going to find peace and harmony and unity and understand that we have to love ourselves and love our neighbors as equally as we are learning to kind of pour into our own self-worth? Again, this is why I say that it is super important for you to double down on your own individual healing journey, because that particular energy overflows into the collective and really helps the cause on where the collective is going to go from here. So we have this major, again, ending / beginning point taking place with Chiron and the North Node in Aries energy. Let us also keep in the back of our mind that if Chiron and the North Node are coming together, sitting on top of each other and teaming up and combusting each other's energy, both of them are directly opposing, sitting across from the South Node in Libra energy. So, you know, we have a opportunity here, and I say opportunity because, again, we are literally co-creators of the reality in which we're living in. And again, may I also just say that I don't have the highest vote of confidence in the collective at this point. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. And this is why I said back in the Ascension forecast for this particular week, like the next 2 weeks, going to be very pivotal to set the tone on what it is that we're going to be moving into, what it is that we're going to be experiencing. And a lot of the reason of why I said that are because of these very, very powerful aspects that I'm currently talking about in the here and now. So let's talk about the fact that the ending that we have the ability to provide the collective with is an ending to the pain, to the struggle, to the wounds of the generational trauma of the earth plane, to the pain, to the trauma of fighting, the pain, the wound of this constant conflict of division amongst man, whether it be, you know, skin color, whether it be social status, whether it be religion, belief, whether it be where you live geography wise in the world. There are so many man-made constructs that keep us in a divisional state, in a state of constantly ripping and tearing each other's scabs off of each other and exposing those wounds to the air once again, and really making sure that we never heal, we never repair from that. The opposition to the South Node in Libra energy, well, that's going to be a tension-filled point, because if you take a look around, like, the world is ugly, okay? Let's start there. But it's actually not as ugly as many of us perceive it to be. There's a lot of beauty in this world. There's a lot of beautiful people. There's a lot of beautiful things that happen on a daily basis that don't get the time, the energy, the attention that it deserves because of the ugliness that is dominant in the world right now. That Libran energy wants us to fight for what is fair, wants us to fight for justice, wants us to fight for each other, wants us to see the beauty in each other, wants us to find peace and harmony not only within ourselves, but within the world around us. And we're directly opposing this energy right now. Think of this as like a sit down, okay? Like a mob mentality sit down. You have Chiron and the North Node over here going, okay, we got to do something about this. We got to fight. We got to take this territory over. We have to demand peace. We have to scare people into wanting to get along with each other, like just the wrong tactics, right? Then you have like the South Node and Libran energy kind of saying, okay, the scales have been out of balance, out of whack for a very long time. Like, why can't we all just get along? Why can't we all just be nice? Why can't we all just, do the work within ourselves? Because if you're a happy, individual, then you're less likely to create damage and pain and trauma to people around you. And, there's this realization going on right now that we have some serious problems in the world. But if we continue to do the same old, which again, we're in Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius, we have no chance of going back to the same old. If we continue to do the same old, we're going to continue to rip open the same wounds that we've been trying to heal. And this goes for us in our individual lives as well. So the ending part that potentially could happen here is that we just reach a particular point of crisis, of anger, of frustration, where we just realize, like, we don't want to do this anymore. That would be the most beautiful of endings. The not so nice endings, of course, are going to be continue to fight and destroy and create harm to the people, to the world around us, which of course is not very progressive. It's not very evolutionized in any state. But let me also just say, in case you forgot, that this is how revolutions are born. And we are moving into a revolution here in 2027 specifically that will carry us into 2030. That's why you're seeing the uprise of the conflict right now. This is why you're seeing the ugliness. This is why you're seeing the conflict, the war, the pain, the trauma, the torture, because this is what, unfortunately, humans need to experience for a prolonged time period in order for us to absolutely reach a breaking point where we're just like, you know what, screw this, we're going to fight back, right? We see it in our own lives. Again, we see it in our own lives. Your back has got to be pressurized in that corner up against the wall before you're willing to make the change that you should have made before your back ever even touched that wall. But as humans, we learn the hard way. And we collectively are learning the hard way on what we cannot continue to do, what we cannot continue to kind of encourage, that there is a huge revolution that is needed, and that we do all need to reach a certain point of evolution in our consciousness so that war doesn't exist. It's only the 1%ers that benefit from war anyways. And the funny thing is I don't know if you've seen it in your social media, but the draft, the looming threat of draft over in the UK or whatever, and you see all of these people say, well, I'm just not going to go. I'm just not going to go. Well, that's great. I encourage that, even though it probably means some difficulties for them to rebel against, the draft, because I'm sure there's some serious repercussions for that. Like, I sit around often and I'm like, how angry and hurt of a person do you have to be to, first of all, sign your life over to the government? Okay, like, I don't get that. In no way am I trying to shit on military. I think at one point in time, our troops, our military was absolutely essential for the evolution of our world at particular points and times. But there is no place for war in New Earth. And I just don't understand right now, like, who is actually that hurt and angry to go out on a field and kill an absolute stranger to make a couple mil for the uppers that don't give an F about any of our lives? Like, how do we still have people signing up to the military? How do we still have people willing and able to go and kill other people to defend territory, like literal landmass? Like, to me, I don't get it. But we're also at the point in the stage of this timeline, in this stage of our evolution and consciousness, where something's got to give. And this particular energy between Chiron and the North Node could be the energy that squashes the way that we've been doing things, the way that we've been creating conflict, the way that we've been fighting for the people that don't deserve us to be even fighting for them. And where it is that we have to bring our energy back to thyself. Healthy, loving people don't want to hurt themselves, don't want to fight themselves, don't want to hurt and fight other people. Certainly not go to war and kill innocent people because the higher up said so. So when we can get the collective to a particular evolutionary mind space where just we're not willing to do it, well, then war will cease to exist. Now, I still think we have a very, very far way to go. Why is that? Well, a lot of it is because the soul, spiritual, concept has been very, very removed from our earth plane. We talk about the scales of causation, karma, all that kind of stuff. Well, we hit a particular, I'm going to say, low point prior to this awakening. And again, I don't know how long you've been with me, but I don't do lives. I don't put myself out there. I absolutely hate being seen, let alone being heard. I can settle for being heard. I absolutely hate being seen. But I put myself out there and did a global meditation. I think it was 2018-ish, because that was the pivotal point of Gaia, Mother Earth herself, trying to determine whether or not she was just going to lay back and allow the dark forest entities that ruled the earth plane for thousands of years up until this point to just rape and pillage her and continue to just keep her down, or whether we could get the level of consciousness up to the point where the vibrations and frequency actually encourage Mother Earth to, get up and fight. And that's why the conjunction in 2020 took place. That's when the Great Awakening had begun, essentially. And that's why we're currently at where it is that we're at. But considering the fact that there is going to be a major revolution, especially in 2027, this is the precursor. This is all the shit that needs to happen in order for a major revolution to take place. And yes, we see small little glimmers of this, especially shout out to the farmers, right? We understand that there's little tiny wins being kind of taking place over the globe, but we're still in a very dark and dire situation here. And I think that even though, like I said previously, I don't think that we are in alignment with the highest timeline available to us right now, I certainly don't think that we are on the lowest one either. So this true node and Chiron aspect taking place at the 16 degrees, this means that we have the ability to balance out the scales. We're around that 15 degree mark. If we were having this particular conjunction, I would say, even at a 5 degree in this Aries energy, that would have been shadow work. That would have been the ego, definitely being in power, our wounds being empowered. If this was taking place closer to the 30th degree, so let's just say 25 degrees, for instance, we would be at a certain place of mastery where we wouldn't be wounded individuals. We wouldn't have this collective or generational wound because we would have done the work within ourselves by the 25th degree, let's say, in order to master the wounded part and really lean into the spiritual teacher, the spiritual mentor, the healing part. But here we are at 16 degrees. This is the halfway point, and especially in an opposition to the South Node in Libran energy, we do have the opportunity to tip the scales back into balance just a little bit in our favor, meaning that we're moving out of the wounded ego and we're moving into at least seeing where it is that there has been growth, there has been healing, there has been repairment, but we still have quite a ways to go. So that is, a pretty huge event, and we will be sitting in this particular energy, taking us all the way into March. So technically speaking, we complete Pisces season, all the shadow work, all of the emotional and spiritual purification work under this particular influence, which I think, generally speaking, is going to be a good thing, seeing as Pisces energy is the unconscious collective. So this is why we do deep shadow work, because we have to unearth a lot of pain and trauma in the collective to even become aware of it, to even be feeling it before we could even consider starting to heal it. So this particular influence, I'm going to say, is the life-changing influence that will be setting the tone on the topics and themes, the karmic chapters that we are going to be kind of working through for the foreseeable future. Now I want to take you to the 22nd. February 22nd, we have Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, and money. We have Mars ruling over our physical energy, our passion, our desires, even our anger. We have Venus, the feminine divine energy. We have Mars, the masculine energy. They are coming together. They are conjuncting at 6 degrees in Aquarius energy. So again, I kind of, talked about this in my year ahead overview. I even talked about it in my February energy forecast overview because this is a very important time. Now, let's just clear it up and say that, Mars and Venus coming together and conjuncting, they are the lovers of the cosmos. They spend eternity chasing each other around the cosmos. Very rarely do they come together and conjunct. We call that the lovers' cosmic kiss. They did conjunct, they conjunct every year. Venus has a 13-month orbit. Mars has a 2 years orbit. So Venus goes faster than Mars. And that means that Venus moves through the area that Mars is kind of occupying at whatever point that they have their conjunction. For us, it was, I think, March of last year. They conjuncted. They do it. So it's not a rare thing. However, we wait for it to happen because the renewal process, again, when we have planets come together and conjunct, there is an ending just as much as there is a beginning. And we wait for it. And so here's the thing. Relationship dynamics have been taking a hit for a couple of reasons. First of all, the North Node being in Aries energy, the South Node being in Libra energy, karmically speaking. This is why relationship dynamics have been popping off for, well, let's take us back to July of 2023. That's when the nodes of the moon shifted permanently into that Aries and Libra axis. But if we actually want to get technical about it, we could go back into, let's say, fall of 2022. And that's kind of when we got a taste. We were in the Taurus and Scorpio axis at that point, but we got a taste of the Aries and Libra axis kind of swooping in and kind of showing us what needed to fall apart, what needed to die in order for us to have the space to be reborn, rebirthed, resurrected once again in our own individual authenticity, our own vibration, our own frequency. So that's why relationships are changing. Secondly to that, July and August of 2023, Venus retrograded. When Venus retrogrades, there is a death and ending, a closure to our self-worth, our self-confidence, to the way that we feel worthy and deserving within ourselves. That overflows. That has an impact on our physical realm, has an impact on who and what makes us happy, who and what makes us feel safe, secure, and stable, and who and what does not. And therefore, those particular aspects and elements have to be removed. There was a huge renewal of that heart space and Leo energy, the heart and soul of the zodiac, really ushering in a new, more authentic version of ourselves that, again, we tried to bust out in November of 2023 under that new moon in Scorpio. Didn't really stick, had too many old systems and structures that we still hadn't provide endings and closures to, kind of pull us back into old habits, old ways of thinking, old ways of doing. Again, we anchored the new version of self in January 11th, new moon in Capricorn. We had a major change of heart under that full moon in Leo energy. That's when the soul, the spirit, our real, true, raw, authentic, vulnerable, individualized soul and spirit energy actually kind of resurrected within ourselves, and we realized what we had to let go of, what no longer made us happy, who no longer made us happy. And since then, we've been trying to basically troubleshoot, to eliminate the problematic areas, clear the space in order for something new to be born in the place of the things that we're currently trying to get rid of. So where I'm going with this is that Mars and Venus, back in March of 2023, when they conjuncted, they started a brand new karmic cycle for relationship dynamics that, again, all the other energies that played out from that time up until now has been helping us to kind of redefine, if you will. The reason why relationship dynamics are popping off here in 2024 is because A, Pluto moved into Aquarius energy. B, again, we anchored that new version of self in and then had a full moon in Leo, which totally changed our heart space. C, we had this Aquarius energy, all of the inner planets built up in this Aquarius energy, which provided a change of mind. And we have essentially been put in a situation, a circumstance, a position where we've been coming to the end of the cycle that began back in March of 2023. So here we have Mars and Venus coming together. They're conjuncting. Not only are they closing the door on this last cycle, taking us back to March 2023, but we're beginning a brand new cycle. The fact that we are beginning a brand new cycle in Aquarius energy means that we're making some serious progress, okay? The Aquarius energy, again, visionary, independent, free, right? We are free to see ourselves from a different set of eyes. We are now seeing from the great observer type of mentality where it is that our old pain, our old trauma, the old wounds of the old version of self had attracted certain individuals into our lives that now we're not only attracted to, but we don't resonate with. We're not even on the same page, let alone in the same chapter, and in some cases not even in the same book anymore. And so things have to end, just as there needs to be a clean slate for new things to begin. The fact that we dive into Pisces season, soul contracts, the fact that Pisces season is emotionally and spiritually purifying and cleansing us for a clean slate, the lightest load that we could possibly be carrying, moving in to a new astrological calendar beginning at the end of March when we jump into Aries season and the equinox kind of takes hold and it resets the scales and it puts us in a new karmic chapter and we're resurrected and reborn and renewed in our life force energy. We are at the ending of multiple cycles right now. That's why it feels so heavy and weighted and dark and depressing. And especially as we start moving through Pisces energy, it's going to be even more so that. But what comes out of darkness is creation. You know, if you want to think about either the religious context of how God said that he created the earth or how you want to believe in the scientific explanation of the Big Bang, doesn't matter what you align with. The matter of fact is that everything is born out of darkness, out of the void. A seed gets planted in the dark earth and really breaks out of its shell and starts kind of coming alive in darkness. Good ideas come out of darkness. When they talk about the great musicians, the great artists, the great writers, the greatest philosophers, they all had depression. They were all mental cases. Why? Because you have to move into the darkness in order to see the light. Light is creativity. Light is spark of life. Light is information. Light is knowledge. Light is the glimmer of hope that is built on bringing something new to life. And here we are at the ending of a cycle, especially between Mars and Venus. This is relationship cycles. It's also creative force energy because you need the masculine and the feminine to come together to create a spark that, again, is the precursor to how life actually forms. Take a look at the sperm and the embryo. The minute that the sperm actually enters into, that egg, I shouldn't have said embryo, but egg, that's when the spark of life, there's an electrical impulse that gets the atoms, that gets all the tissue get going, right? Everything happens in darkness. You would not be able to see a spark of anything if you had light shining within you. You don't see sparks in light. You see sparks in darkness. And so we're coming to the end of a very intense cycle, especially between Mars and Venus, which will impact our relationship dynamics. It will impact our creative energy as well, because this is how new ideas, new inspirations, new creative projects, new dreams, new visions, new goals are born. This is how it happens. But before we can start building towards the new, we have to grieve the ending, the closure, the death of the old. And we are definitely going to be feeling that energy as we kind of anticipate that 22nd of February. I also talked about how, and again, if you've been with me for any amount of time, you know that I don't fall into the victim, well, I shouldn't call it victimhood, but the mentality of everything is portals, everything is numerology, everything is, portals. Okay. Well, February 22nd is 100% what I'm going to call a portal day. Why? Because we received this 222 code back in January, back under the full moon in Leo energy, back under the new moon in Capricorn. The elemental energy profile and the aspects that took place under those lunar events had 222 in its coding. And here we are, February, the second month, if you want to believe the modern day calendar, on the 22nd. The 22nd is a master creator number anyways. Twos are about stability, relationships, two parts coming together, two parts unifying into one, creating a stable foundation to build something on top of whatever is coming together. So this particular February 22nd, Venus and Mars conjunction is 100% an energetic portal for us to put an ending, a death, a closure to the old systems, the old cycles, that old relationship dynamic, the old ways of making money, the old ways of caring for yourself, the old projects, the old ideas, in order for us to initiate something new. But it's going to feel heavy, it's going to feel weighted, it's going to feel dark, because that is how life is created. So to say that we got a lot going on in these next couple of weeks is an understatement. And I just wanted to take this time to kind of rant about them a little bit, kind of show you where it is in the chart, show you what it is that we're dealing with. I also, before I wrap this up, want to mention that from now up until, let's say, May, I'm just general timeline, we are going to have all of the planets stemming from the Aquarius energy to Gemini energy. Everything is built up, and if you take a look at the chart, you will notice that all of the placements are built up between the Aquarius energy. So Pluto is going to be our, let's call it, starting point in that Aquarius energy, because Venus and Mars, they're going to surpass Pluto here very quickly. And then we take a look at Uranus down there in the Taurus energy. Now Jupiter, if you listen to the year ahead overview, you would know Jupiter is going to be moving into Gemini energy May in 2024. And at that particular point in time, Jupiter is going to skip over Uranus, and he is going to be the furthest planet away from Jupiter. So if you take, Pluto. So if you take a look at Pluto kind of being the starting point and Jupiter being the ending point, we have the great transformer kind of setting down the foundation of what needs to change, what needs to be altered, what needs to be adjusted in the Aquarius energy of the futuristic vision of the collective that we're trying to hold, we're trying to visualize so that we can manifest it. We have all of the planets being sandwiched in between Pluto and Jupiter. Jupiter's the planet of growth, expansion, beliefs, abundance, and blessings. He is as optimistic, as confident as we could ever get. And he is going to be moving into that Gemini energy, which means that the sandwich effect between the Aquarius energy all the way up to Gemini energy, the major focus is wrapping up the particular life lessons, the karmic chapters between the Aquarius energy and the Pisces energy, and pushing forward, starting something new, initiating, creating, building towards something new in the Aries energy and in the Taurus energy. So we have from now until essentially May, all systems go. But it's hard to say all systems go because as of right now, we're just about to move into Pisces energy. There are no moves to be made in the physical realm in Pisces energy. This is an inner realm cleansing. It's an inner realm evolution. It's an inner realm healing. The pickup, the energy, the action point begins when we move into Aries season. Everything from now up until then is about recalibrating the mind, the body, the soul, getting in alignment, getting a visual, getting a plan put into play in our inner realm so that green light go ahead with that Aries energy, we can dig in, we can progress, we can be productive, we can assert ourselves, we can aggressively go after what it is that we need to go after, that you may not know what you need to go after because again, we haven't had those realizations, those epiphanies that the Pisces season will definitely bring to us. So guys, I hope that was helpful. It was a rant, if nothing else. I hope we learned something. I hope that it triggered something. Of course, you want to take a look at your own chart because although, I spent the bulk of this time talking about the collective's energy and the influence of these aspects, this has a major influence and impact on us in our own individual charts as well. So of course, you need to kind of find where the Aquarius energy is, the Pisces energy is, the Aries and Taurus energy in your chart. That is essentially the areas of your life that's going to need your major concentration, time, energy, attention, and focus from now until May. And again, if you want to take a look at your chart where some of these conjunctions are taking place, that's going to be very, very revealing on where it is that you should be pouring your time, energy, and attention into yourself, into your life right now. So of course, If you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section below. I'd be happy to answer any questions that I could possibly answer. If you have any comments, we want that too. If you want and to share any of your experiences in relation to the time frames in which we talked about. This is an open community and open conversation for us to grow, for us to learn, for us to evolve. And of course, the only way to do that is to share our experiences. So I thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sending you nothing but love, and we'll talk to you soon.